I could never name what that was with myself, but I can name it for you now, which was, I found it hard to live my life because I didn't know what death was about. It wasn't that I was afraid of death. It was that, I mean, I remember as a teacher, many times this happened, sitting up in bed in the morning and thinking, if I knew I was going to be dead this day, would I go to school today? Would I go in and teach? What would I do? I mean, how would I live my life for the next week if I knew I was going to be dead this day week? And I really was to be very upset about the fact that, not that I would die, but I didn't know. This, that we don't know. We can't. I just thought this was a terrible hardship to not know. So for me it was to know what death is. And knowing it, it does answer how life is to be lived, or how I live my life. The question has just gone away because that's what the experience was. It just disappeared. But that was what I had always been questioning, what I'd always been trying to find answers to, was underneath all the others. So if you can kind of in any way name or articulate for yourself what your problem is, or what is the thing that bothers you most? And you know, you mightn't get it exactly, but you'll get somewhere in the vicinity. So I call that.
Do you have an example
of
a question that a deep resonance for you?
I would have been exactly, you know, well, what's this death all about? I mean, is it about oblivion? Is it about, is there a heaven? I mean, and the thing about TAT was when I heard that these answers, one can find the answers to these questions while still being alive. That was an extraordinary idea for me. But I always knew that my question was around death in some way.
Can I ask you about this, where you said, where someone says something to you that makes you upset, or you take it as an insult? When you saw that, it wasn't a managing. You didn't have an internal dialogue going on, saying I shouldn't be doing this, or how should I? I mean, how did you meet that person on a day-to-day basis? Like maybe there's someone who upsets you at work or something that you have difficulties with. The point was just to observe it?
It wasn't that easy for me to do it in the beginning. I mean, it was just the teaching was observe your reactions and see. So I would be trying to do it. And then I suppose I began to get a second in which I could see what had happened and how and even if I didn't react, I would see that I had reacted internally. Even though I might have stayed calm at the front, I began to see that something had happened internally. And I just keeping practicing it, I just developed a tolerance to some extent. And what was a real breakthrough point for me at one stage was there was a situation going on, and I was talking a lot, which is something that I do. And before this, I couldn't stand anybody to say it. And this was happening, and I could see the other person was getting irritated. And I could see it, and I kept on doing it. Now before that, I would have corrected. I'd have corrected myself. I'd have, fixed up the image or whatever. But I kept on doing it. And that was a real breakthrough moment for me because I could see it. I didn't change myself. I didn't respond to it. I stayed watching. And from then on, I could observe better always. So there was some kind of a breakthrough moment. Then it happened in my own kitchen, actually, sitting at the kitchen table. I knew exactly what had happened. And I knew that it was a breakthrough. But it was only maybe 30 seconds, or it wasn't like it was an hour or anything.
What changed?
The ability to tolerate Tess maybe not being as wonderful as she thought she was. She was still, she was just, it was more like I could see Tess as other people could see her, as opposed to the polished up version, and tolerate it. It was the tolerating it was the thing.
But
You know what I'm
So
talking
you had to
You
accept that.
accept yourself without having that, well, if I can't do that, that doesn't fit the image.
Yeah, it was that, but there was a
Well, it's
breakthrough
true.
moment when that was what happened, and it was with the thing that was most painful for me.
Yeah, watching it.
You know, and from then on I could, I nowadays I can see things going on with myself and I can just see them, and sometimes I'm a bit amused and sometimes I'm a bit annoyed, almost separately, and see, would you look at her?
But you didn't try to change it in the situation. The next time you saw that person, the next time you saw that they were getting irritated, you didn't say, Tess,
No,
you're going too far now.
yeah.
Stop.
I became able to tolerate Tess in every situation better after that. It's something, the complete attachment to this image making or ego thing had gotten broken.
Yeah.
I won't say it had gone away or anything, but you know, the magnet could get apart for a few seconds every now and again, and then it got to be more and more, and then it got to be that it more or less that's the normal way to be.
You were being honest.
Well, but I wasn't able to be honest before that. I used to try. I mean, it wasn't that I didn't try, but when it actually happened, I knew something had happened.
Yeah.
I knew something. Did that happen to you? Do you?
Yeah, well, I was thinking too that when it happens to you, then all of a sudden you're able to do that with other people too. If you're not,
Sure.
other people have their little idiosyncrasies and they get mad or irritated and they're doing these little things and you're not so prone to, you know, like you're a little kid and you've got to fix them all the time. And so it's more like all of a sudden if you're real, then you can accept yourself and you can accept other people.
That's really true. That's really true.
Because your ego doesn't have to
It doesn't
try
have-
to control inside out.
Yeah, it doesn't lock into, hook into any little irritation or whimsy in another. It's just as irrelevant as it is in oneself. You see right by it. That's really true, yeah.
Accept yourself in a strange way. It's like I used to think, oh, well, now I'm no different than the family dog. In a sense, you know, I can accept him as being this thing that you accept, and he's around, he's okay. But he's not like, he doesn't have to be perfect, and I don't have to hold him up on a pedestal and make him do everything he's got to do. It's just okay.
Yeah, it is a level of accepting yourself.
I'm just thinking that, you know, your engagement into how you are as a person, once you accept yourself totally, once you're letting go of that investment in yourself, that maybe your behavior does change as a result of that, but not because
Right.
you are trying, like you used to, examining the faults that you have and trying to change them into ways that are socially acceptable.
I think that's the,
Yeah.
then it'll happen naturally, if it does.
Because I'm stuck in a lot of that in my everyday life.
Really.
Yeah.
At some point, and it must have been around that time, I also realized I was never going to succeed in polishing up this personality to be the wonderful, charismatic, you know, so intelligent and everything that I would have liked it to be.
Right.
And when I recognized that, it was kind of, well, what could I settle for? If I can't be perfect, what can I settle for? And that, you know, I thought about it, and it became something that functions. It functions. It functions. I'm able to get a job, I'm able to feed myself, and, you know, there are enough people who treat me as a friend. What the fuck more do I want? Isn't that enough for anybody? So that kind of thing, you know, you see, it's just a piece of functioning, actually, a piece of functioning software. And if it's functioning, so maybe even rationally being able to look at it and sort of say, well, everything functions adequately.
Right.
So that's the purpose of it. So, you know, maybe I'd like a lovely red sports car, but the old jalopy I have does the job just fine.
Does it go with the acceptance concept kind of go against the effort? I don't know, is there, you know that Richard also said you should, you know, do a lot, but then the acceptance kind of sounds like you didn't do much, you know, is there?
Well, it was an enormous effort to get that far. And that was
But
just
after?
with that bit. Well, I probably had some other bit to work on, you know, because that was, I don't know how long, maybe a year before the awakening or something, I cannot tell you, or a year, 18 months or something. So there were other things I was working on. I can't name what they were right now. I was just making a lot of effort, as best I could. About any of the things, I said, you know, bad strategies or any of the things that aren't ever mentioned in emails, I would really try them as far as I could.
I wanted to ask also about the psychological, the two, you know, the major shift there, the psychological and spiritual questioning.
Yeah.
Well, what was the fundamental difference in you when that happened? You know, what was the difference in you in the? Yeah.
A change in goal. The goal here was always to be better, to improve myself, to be a better person, to be more generous, to be more kind, to be good according to my Catholic views, to give something to the world rather than take, to contribute rather than be taking. And when the goal changed and it became to become true to myself, to become my true nature or whatever, the tat thing. That's what I called it. I go for the tat.
Tat. Yeah, the psychological level always, it seems to me that the psychological level always has a reference point. Because there's something to measure yourself against for that improvement. You know, it's like, I need to do this and this and this to live up to the image, to improve on this. Whereas the shift is there is no reference to making yourself a better something, a better, I don't know if is that the difference is, you know, is.
That's true. There's no comparison really, because you're turning the microscope on yourself. Trying to
Without
see what's
judging.
actually going on in you. What's happening really?
You start trying to move towards the ideal you in space. It's like art's idea, isn't it? You measure speed with two people. So you have this ideal you think I'm going to be that person, but it's a process of measuring, isn't it? If you get rid of that person, stop trying to be someone, and it just
start questioning, what is this at all anyway? You know, I've put so much effort into everything for 30 years and I'm still unhappy. And I still have everything that the world said I should have. What on earth? And for a long time I didn't realise that, I thought that one should accept one's happiness. Maybe because of the Irish thing. You know, what more would you expect? I mean, we're all unhappy, or that's life. I mean, you die and go to heaven, like, live a good life and that'll be your reward. And it was quite a long time along when I began to realise, well, why is unhappiness acceptable? Why, you know, does everybody have the same amount of unhappiness? And, you know, there are, I mean, I would have read poetry and stuff that would have railed against this unhappiness. And one time I came across the idea that the very fact that you know what happiness is means there's something in you that recognizes that. And I was very taken by that idea, that I don't know, it was as if I just knew that I would know when happiness isn't the right word, that's, happiness is the wrong word altogether. But, I don't know, satisfaction. Whenever was unsatisfied, when it was satisfied, one would know it. And this dissatisfaction that was going on, it wasn't being satisfied. So I was looking for satisfaction to, well, my deep question of death. And I thought, you know, how can I used to really wonder, how could anybody sail along living their lives every day? And I'd never ask about death, I never talk about it or so. It was a constant irritation for me, this. It came up all the time.
Was it a goal that was reached that allowed you to be satisfied with your answer, or was it just a letting go of the striving for finding?
Well, self-realization answers the question of what death is, and then that irritation was gone.
But that's not something you can realize in your head,
Well,
is it?
it's a different order. You know, which is a kind of,
The shift for me looks like, from my perspective, from the psychological to spiritual, that, you know, the improving yourself is pretty concrete. You always have a goal kind of where you're going to, but then when you go to that, for me, it looks like it always gets more vague and vague and vague, kind of desperate also in a way, I don't know, or, you know,
it got concrete in a different way, which was, before that I hadn't thought of noticing my own reactions and, you know, and thoughts. I hadn't thought of looking at my thoughts and noticing them. That was a whole new thing. So now it was a concrete thing to start looking within and noticing there I am making judgments about that.
So that other means, but the goal was, you know, it's just, for me, it just looks like, I don't know, I don't really know what the goal is, I have a feeling for it, but, you know, it's just, the more I go from the, you know, giving importance to getting better, being a better person, or being, you know, the perfect me, the more it shifts kind of the more vague it kind of gets what you.
Yeah, I know what you mean by, because you can't name the goal. That's why I used to just call it the chat thing. Or, you know, the kingdom of heaven. Although that didn't mean anything to me. It was just, there were enough people in every culture and at all times that had been people who were writing about this. And I had satisfied myself of 30 years of looking that I had worn out all the other options. There must be something to this. You know, there have always been people who have been writing about it and talking about it and saying it. And I thought, well, I don't know what it is, but it seems like there's something for sure, something real. And I just accepted it as, so I just followed, you know, any teachings or guidance I got as to how to go for that. And things began to happen after a while that I realized there was something happening. And I came across the TAF website in 2003. And 2005, I went and I met people. And from then on, I was really working at stuff, and there were things happening. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was spiritual, but looking back, I can see that there were, for sure. And I did know that there were things happening, but I just thought they were like one damn thing after another, is what I would have called it. But there were certainly things, enough to keep me going the next bit, always.
So you did get more desperate then?
I gave up. I mean, Seamus got sick and I just didn't have time to think about anything. I thought I had completely forgotten about the spiritual path for 18 months. Completely. If anybody had asked me, that's gone now, I don't have any time for it. And after 18 months I sat down to meditate one day, which was a rare thing for me. And when I sat down to meditate, I went right down, in a place I had never been before. And Seamus was downstairs and he called me after about 10 minutes and I got straight up and went down to him. I was just utterly amazed at that. And then that's the strangest thing, you know, I could have spent years trying to meditate and here I am, forgot all about the spiritual path for 18 months, and yet I knew for sure that whatever that was, something had happened. And from then on, very, very quickly after that, things were happening, you know, dreams that were giving me information to let me know that this was happening. Feeling like a tea or